First masterclass, how to build a 60-second pitch with Kostas from
API Rise.
API
Rise.
Rise. Okay. Hi Kostas.
Hi Ariel.
Okay, so we're going to be spending the next half an hour to an hour working together on building a 1-minute pitch for your company, API Rise. But before we start looking at the whole methodology and everything, I want you to go freestyle.
Okay.
And tell me what you guys are all about, when you started, give me some background, no rush.
Okay, we are 3 guys from Greece, Athens. We are all engineers, we have an engineering background. I know Fotis more than 10 years. I think it's almost 15 now. We started studying together at the university there, and then we kept working together also, and then at some point we decided to try, let's say, and do our own venture with what we've learned so far.
When did you start this?
We started working on this idea about a year ago, previous summer, let's say.
Okay.
Trying to distill what we knew and what we have worked already at the university as researchers and see how we can create a product out of it.
What was the trigger? What was the thing that got you going? The idea that, or the trigger that, inspired the idea behind your company?
I think that it was mainly the need to be creative. We were at some point at the university where we stopped feeling creative anymore, and we tried to see what else we can do in Athens. We couldn't figure out a way to do something different from what we were doing already.
Okay.
And we decided to do something on our own. I think.
So tell me, what is API?
What is an API?
What is API Rise, the company? What are you all about?
About making, initially what we had in our mind was to make the life of developers easier when they have to deal with the integration of APIs in their products or software or applications, whatever we call them, depending on the perspective we want to have.
We make life easier for developers.
Yeah.
Regarding API-related challenges.
Yes. When they want to integrate services, external services, or even internal if it is a big company, for example, or an enterprise.
Okay.
And yeah, we wanted to make this whole process easier and allow them to focus more on the core problem that they want to solve, instead of wasting time in doing repetitive tasks for maintenance or integration that has to do with the APIs that they want to use. And this was the first step. The second step, the second goal that we have, let's say, is that, and this also has to do with our background, we want to make this kind of technologies also accessible to people without a technical background.
Which technologies?
Use the APIs. So when we create, for example, a product and we need to incorporate a number of external services in that, usually it's not the decision of a developer. It's also some business people, let's say, some managers, some other guys that they need to decide that, okay, we need to take this service and use it in order to enhance, for example, our product. And this is something that usually what they do now is that, okay, we are looking for location services right now, what options we have. We have, for example, Google Maps or the big maps.
Right.
And then we go to our developers and we say, okay, integrate this. But this is not that simple as a process. Many times they have to go back to adjust how they are using these services, alter the behavior of the services.
So if I had to ask, condense the challenge, I would say so API integration can be made easier and more accessible to more people?
Yeah.
Okay. So
that's what we believe and that's what we want to achieve.
So the problem here is that API technology, right? Mm-hmm. Brings a lot of potential, but has a lot of barriers.
Yes.
Okay, 1 second. Creates a lot. But still understand correctly, barriers that drive focus away from developing your core product, if you're an engineer, right? If you're okay, and that make it unaccessible to non-technical people.
Yes.
Okay, good.
I think that a quite good metaphor, that it is not mine, is we can consider APIs as a way, I mean, in a traditional manufacturing process, we have our suppliers, okay, where we get resources in order to build our product.
Right.
So the API is exactly that, it's a way that we get resources from other companies or people or anything that we can think of on the internet, and use these services directly on our products in order to compose part of the functionality that we want to have and deliver to the end user.
Right.
For example, if you would like right now to build from scratch a service like Google Maps, it's almost impossible.
Right.
Okay, but it is quite trivial for everyone who wants to build a mobile application right now to include location services, because Google did this and they expose this through an API so a developer can use it.
And now you want to make that entire process easier.
Yeah, and as we move forward, this whole process will be more complex because we will move in a situation where more and more APIs will be needed as part of our product. So it's like trying to manage our supply chain, let's say. We have suppliers and we need to manage them. So as we have a factory, let's say, and we want to build an iPhone and we need to do supply management, something similar also happens through APIs for digital products.
So that's an explanation of what an API is. What does it stand for, by the way, API?
Application programming interface.
Right. So what is it that you do? How do you solve the problem of working better with API, making API more available?
We are offering a platform that allows the user to interact with the APIs they want to use and manipulate these APIs in a graphical way that generates some code that they would have to write on their own so far.
So you're Windows to Basic?
What? Windows?
Windows was a graphic interface that made programming, so to speak, accessible to everybody, because before the Windows interface, everybody had to know how to write code. Am I wrong? Or maybe Wix, like the drag and drop, so you just created an interface?
Yeah.
A graphic interface that makes
probably. Yeah, exactly. Wix probably is a better example. So instead of writing HTML directly, as you would do in the past, with Wix we are just drag and drop elements, and the code is generated by their own.
And you guys can generate the code for any API or for a list of most popular APIs.
Yeah, this is still under consideration, how far we want to go with that, and if we want to have a closed set, let's say, of APIs that we are going to support, or have a more open platform, but in this case it was going to be more...
But I don't have to learn the APIs, I can learn your system. If your system supports 5 APIs, right? And every API has its own weird character, its own weird way of working with it. Instead of me having to learn how to work with every one of these APIs, I work with your system, which is A, fits multiple APIs, B, has a very, very easy graphic interface, and as a result of that, using your system becomes 10 times easier, and you're the intermediate between me and the API.
Yeah.
Almost like Universal API Translate or something.
Yeah, but it's not, okay, there is one way to tackle this kind of problem is create mashups. Okay, so I take, for example, all the payment APIs that exist out there, and I create, let's say, a simpler interface on top of that.
Yeah.
And I go to the developer and say, okay, take this library, it's simpler, And you can use that instead of going and using PayPal and then I don't know which other.
Okay.
But we don't want to go in this direction, because if we do that, it's like saying that I know the absolute truth about how you should interact with all these APIs.
Okay.
So we try also to figure out a way of offering also some flexibility to the developer or the user from the other side to manipulate and adapt these APIs to the needs they have. So
Through your system or in addition
through our system.
So your system, what is it, like an open source?
No, it's not open source. At least for now.
But does your system develop as your users use it? Or is it just that I can choose to use your system for a certain amount and then whenever I want I can continue directly with the API? When you said flexibility, what do you mean?
I mean that I take the APIs that we want to use.
Okay.
I can, for example, manipulate it and create a subset of it that is relevant to me only, and I can accept only this part. Or I can align it and make it, let's say, to an internal API that I'm using.
I don't understand.
Yeah, okay.
I'm a non-technical person, right? And one of the things we want to achieve here is the person in the street, a random person in the street that lives in the 21st century, that isn't a hobbit somewhere, but isn't a genius either, needs to be able to understand what we're saying.
Yeah.
Right? So I get some of what you're saying, but I'm actually allowing myself to be lazy and dumb, just so that I don't want to bridge the gap by working my brain to understand what you're saying.
Yeah, this sounds
It has to be ridiculously simple. You have to be able to explain it to my mother over dinner. So that's the idea. So here's what I understand, here's what I don't, and maybe what I don't understand isn't core. Remember, we're going to have 60 seconds to present. So we're not going to go that deep. We have to extract the essence of what your venture is all about, right? So here's what I do get. Every API is a platform that allows me to leverage existing resources to create something of my own.
Yeah.
Right? So Google Maps is a service. It's also an API. If I have an application that wants to use geography as a component, I can connect to API. So that's the world of API before you ever existed, and that's part of the innovation that we're living in today.
Yeah.
The world of APIs is a trend. It's something that's happening. Good. You're saying, okay, API is still very early stage. It's early stage in that there are different APIs. Every API has its own standards of how you integrate with it. Learning these standards, applying these standards is not as easy as you would think. And as a result, while I'm developing my own map, or my own application for the map, instead of spending 95% really perfecting my application and 5% making it connect to the API, I'm spending 60% on my application and 40% of my time for a certain amount of time just tapping into Google Maps. You're saying, I can take that 40% and lower it to 5. I can make it easy for you. And I can make it easier for you for multiple APIs, and how many will be a decision I make later on. So far, I understand you, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't even know necessarily that at this point we have to become more technical than that.
Okay.
You can say, okay, so but what we're going to do, we have to do 3 things in your 1-minute pitch, right? There are components and there are prerequisites. So 3 things have to come across in the very first 30 seconds of your 60 seconds. Number 1, we have to understand exactly what space you're in. We understand you're in the technology space, you're in the API space. I get that. Number 2, we have to explain very clearly what the value is that you're creating. We're saving developers a lot of time, and we're making APIs available to non-developers as well. If computers were only being used by programmers once, when when graphic computer interfaces were created, they became available to people who were not programmers as well, right? Yeah. That's the example I gave for Windows. They made computers available to everybody. Whereas before that, it was only available to... So this is the value that you're creating in the space of API. So we have 2 out of 3. The third thing we need is the innovation.
Okay. What
is the innovation? And that may be technical. And that's what I'm trying to understand. Because I get the space and I get the value. But what's amazing about it? What's the innovation? And I don't mind if the innovation is something that your entire audience doesn't understand. I don't mind if a certain profile only understands it. That's okay. Because when you go to a demo day or when you go to a pitch day where you have 1 minute and you have 400 people in the audience, some of them are investors, some of them are strategic partners, some of them are end users, right? And within the investors and within the end users and within the, you have different types of people, and we don't need to speak to all of them. There will be developers or investors who understand technology that you can go a little bit more, whereas my mother won't understand. As long as she gets the first 2 things. If you can get the innovation to be clear to everybody, that's perfect.
Okay.
What is your innovation? The graphic interface?
Yeah, I think that's a different paradigm of how we interact with technology. So instead of writing code,
Okay.
we have a different way of creating this code.
Okay.
And it doesn't require someone to spend time to learn a specific computer language to do it.
So that's the benefit. But what's the innovation? So the innovation is the code that you created, or you like, the innovation is that with one graphic interface we can speak to multiple APIs. We've created a special algorithm.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's the secret sauce? What's the innovation? What couldn't we do before that we can do now? It doesn't have to be technological, right? The famous example I always use with the airplane, right? You get to San Francisco from New York in 6 hours by flying in the air. So the innovation is the speed in which you get there, and the air, and the speed is the benefit. The innovation is that this car can now fly.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
With the microwave, again, the example I always give.
We can heat without
fire.
Without fire.
Right. The benefit is that the food gets heated very quickly.
So in this sense, if you do, for example, an API integration without actually writing code, is this an innovation?
Yes. Is it? I'm asking you. This is where I don't know. Is it new to the world to be able to do API integration without code writing?
Almost. There are some people that are doing it, but not in the way that we want.
And even if there are, that's your innovation.
Yeah.
You found a way. So let's try to do this, okay? Our space, and that's something we're going to talk about in the very first 15 seconds. We're going to have a powerful opening, and by the end of that powerful opening, it will be very, very clear what space we're in. We're in the space of API, correct?
Yeah.
Can we define that as a space?
I think so, yes, we can define it as I mean, we are also already talking about the API economy, so...
API, okay, API. The value, or the benefit, right, is... So you're getting confused between the benefit and the innovation.
Yeah.
No, the benefit is spending
less time.
Much less, right? That's the outcome. The benefit is always an outcome.
Okay, so yeah, spending.
And the innovation is more about the how.
Okay.
So the benefit is, how much less time?
This is something
out of every 20 hours that I'm a programmer now, I'm an engineer. For every 10 hours I'm working, spending on integration with API, I will now, thanks to you, be spending 2.
Yeah, let's see.
Is that, it's hard to say.
Yeah, it's hard to say at this point, yeah. It's hard.
Okay, what's your goal? Don't tell me where you are today. If I'm investing in your company, I'm investing in where you're going to be in 3 years. What are you promising me? Are you promising me that it will go from 10 to 2? Is that the vision I'm investing in? You understand what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. So, yeah, at this point we can have, let's say, talk about the vision and not...
Yes.
Yeah.
We're always talking about the vision, right? Because you're a startup, so you're not there yet. And you're participating in a demo day because you're trying to get more people to support you. The people will say, if I support you, what will I be part of? If I support the Wright brothers, 5 years from today, I will be an owner in a company that can fly people, blah, 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 right? So when the Wright brothers said, I want to create a machine that flies, they didn't have one yet. But they said, imagine if a machine could fly, and that was the, right? That was the innovation. So what's the value? What's the benefit that you're hoping? What's driving you? What's motivating you? You say, I want to save time for programmers.
I want to save time to programmers and make all this more accessible to people without... lower the barriers of the people who work with this kind of technology.
Okay, so let's say save, for now, we'll say save lots of time for programmers, correct?
Yeah.
Right? We can say lower barriers or make APIs available to anyone,
Yeah.
right? Let's say to non-programmers. Good. And the innovation is no more need for code writing. Don't have to know code to do API integration.
Mm-hmm.
That I can tell you I would love. That's something I need, and I'm not a programmer. Okay? Don't need to know or write code to use or to integrate
APIs are profiles.
with API. Now we're getting somewhere.
Okay.
Right? This is very, 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 very simple to understand.
Okay.
We might want to explain how we do that. And so you can say that part of the innovation is that you don't have to do that, right? Don't have to know code. You could argue that not having to know code is also part of the benefit. The innovation is the graphic interface.
The innovation is the graphic interface. Okay. Yeah.
You could do that as well, right? So it's always slippery. It's always back and forth between benefit and innovation.
Mm.
But one is the how and one is the what.
Mm-hmm.
The outcome is the value.
Yeah.
The secret sauce or the mechanism, the black box, that thing that's happening in the computer that we have no idea how it's happening, that's the innovation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So don't need to know to write code with API thanks to a unique new graphic solution, graphic interface.
Yeah, it's a combination actually of graphical interface and how this can translate the code generation. So
Into what? What was the second sentence?
Code generation.
Oh, code generation. Thanks to a unique graphic interface, right?
Mm-hmm.
That knows how to automatically translate movements, right? Mouse movements, or clicks, or what? User behavior into code.
User behavior.
Let's say X into code.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
You have to, what?
It's quite impressive because from the beginning of all this venture, okay, we are, me personally and everyone, constantly trying to communicate more and more with people. And every time you feel that, okay, I made a step, I can make things more clear and I can communicate them better.
Right.
You see that there are more steps to do. This is impressive actually.
Listen, every entrepreneur that starts a company embarks on a journey towards a very meaningful milestone, which is called sense of product.
Mm-hmm.
Sense of product is that very, very deep, intuitive understanding of what you're all about. And what's amazing is that when you get to that point, it suddenly becomes ridiculously simple to explain even the most complicated thing. And that's why I love the 1 minute pitch, because it really forces you and it accelerates you towards that milestone. Now, this may change still. This is only a first draft. We still have to play with this. You have to look at this and say, wait a minute, it's very simplified, but is it true? Does this really capture my sense of product?
Yeah.
We're not 100% there, but let's say we are now a meaningful step forward, right? Okay. So, now that we know that we're in the space of API, right, what would be a powerful way? I'm reminding you what we're going to do. Your 1 minute pitch is going to have 4 components, okay?
Yes.
It's going to have a powerful opening, okay? Then we're going to present our essence. Then we're going to present our traction. What have we accomplished to date, right? And then we're going to have a call for action, call to action, right? Now, This and this, they always change.
Yeah.
Because in different times you have different traction, and your call to action changes from event to event based on the profile of the audience you have. So the call to action is always context related. It's always related specifically to the event that you're participating in.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very, very important. A call to action could be something that you decide as a result of 2 people in the audience out of 1,000. But these are the 2 people you're trying to get a meeting with. So your call to action will go to them. And if these 2 people come from a certain background, let's say they love history. One of them is his hobby is like ancient Rome and different types of military warfare. It has nothing to do with you, right? Your powerful opening may be an analogy that connects the essence of what you do to something that has to do with ancient Rome, because that's going to resonate with that person, and he's going to most likely walk up to you and say, you know, I love Rome. And boom, now we have something, right? So this is now what you and I are going to try to do. I have a general understanding of what your venture is all about. We've now isolated the 3 components that go. The space goes into the powerful opening. So by the end of your first 10 to 15 seconds, people, they know what you're spacing. They need to be able to say, here, I'm not interested.
Yeah. Okay.
This is counterintuitive, right? The audience needs to decide as quickly as possible, are you relevant or are you not relevant? If I'm not relevant, I don't want to steal another 45 seconds of their life.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to walk away after 10 seconds if I'm not relevant. Now that everybody's listening, the buffet is free. There's no line. Go get yourself another piece of cake, right? So a lot of investors, for instance, invest in certain areas. Some say my portfolio is only real estate. Some say I only do biotech. Some say I only do information technology, right? I only do tourism and romance. I only do gamification. And they may think your venture is amazing, but you're not in their portfolio. They need to know if you're relevant to them or not here.
Yeah, okay.
Understood?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we begin with the space.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to combine the space with a powerful opening, we want to, first of all, a powerful opening is meant to really shake up the audience, because people need to be paying attention, and it needs to capture their imagination, and there are 2 ways you can do it. You can use negative framing or positive framing.
Mm-hmm.
So negative framing is focusing on a problem and describing the scope of the problem in massive numbers. Okay? Positive framing is inspiring the imagination towards some kind of visionary solution.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine if you started with your audience and you say, I want everybody in the audience who knows how to use API, who can integrate any application into any API to raise their hands right now. Go ahead, raise your hands. Okay. Tomorrow, when I ask you this, all of you are going to raise your hands, thanks to our solution. You understand?
Yeah.
It's got, and it's always, the powerful opening is always, it has to talk about the audience. It has to resonate with the audience. It's got to be connected to them. So I had a startup. I saw a startup that was all about, they found out that 1 out of every 5 trucks in the US that are empty, right? So the US has thousands, I don't know how many trucks that move stuff from one place to another. Sometimes it goes by air, sometimes by train, sometimes by these massive 18-wheeler trucks. He realized that 20% of them at any given point were empty. So you can get up in front of the audience and say, did you know that 1 out of every 5 trucks is empty? And the guy's like, okay, I mean, good, who cares? Or he said, how many times have you been stuck in traffic with 5 different trucks in front of you blocking a 4-way highway, right, 4-lane highway? How annoying would it be for you to discover that you're there for nothing, that those trucks were empty and all they were doing was just making it harder for you to get home? Okay, now I get it. It's got to touch me. It's got to touch my audience, right? So this is very important because as an entrepreneur who's on stage, the mindset is, we're here to talk about me. I was just given 60 seconds of fame. Hundreds of people in the audience have been requested to stop everything they're doing and listen to Kostas. So let's talk about Kostas. We're here to talk about API rises, right?
Yeah.
Wrong. You understand? We're here to talk about the audience.
About the audience, yes.
People listen the most when you talk about things that are relevant to their life. Your job is to reverse engineer whatever it is that you're doing into something that is relevant to my life. Now, what could be your powerful opening? Let's think. Let's say we wanted to use negative framing and we talk about the scope of the problem. I like using big numbers. I like getting up on stage and saying 15 trillion hours a year, ladies and gentlemen, is the amount of time engineers and programmers spend only on API integration, which isn't the development of their core product. Like, just to put things in perspective.
Yeah.
That time could be used to develop their product. That means for all of you investors in this room, the money that you gave your developers, 40% of that money isn't really going to developing the solution that you invested in. It's actually going to overcome barriers for API integration to make your solution accessible. The only problem is that time could have been spent making your solution better. So for all of the investors out there, we have something that can give your ventures a better chance of succeeding. For instance, I'm an investor. I care how my money is being spent. Oh my God. If I'm an investor, I'm writing myself a note. I have to talk to my developers to go check this out because they're using my money. That's what I mean. So that's why I asked you how much time are you saving before when I said is it.
Yes, I understand.
So you have to do some analysis. You have to do some figuring out. You have to test if your product is already operational, and we'll check that when we talk about traction. You have to kind of test it. Do you have an estimate of any kind?
No. This kind of estimate, no. We don't.
Okay. What would be a good estimate? What would be success for you? What's your KPIs, your key performance indicators? How will we know that your venture has succeeded? What's going to make somebody buy your company for $1 billion? Or what's going to get every programmer, what's the threshold? What do you have to promise me as a programmer in order to want to use your system?
Yeah, reduce the time that you spend.
I know, that's not enough.
But that's not enough.
You want to, I'll give you an example. Do you want more money? Do you want more money? Okay. Let's see what this. There you go. Here you go. This is 10 Israeli agor. That's like 3 cents. Okay. You now have more money. Is that what you wanted?
No.
Okay. So more time or less time, those kind of ambiguous statements, not good enough.
Yeah.
They don't capture the imagination. A number does. Now, if you don't know what the number is, promise me something. Remember, you're selling your company, you're selling a vision. Promise me something. You can promise me time, you can promise me the number of people who will end up using the system. You can promise me what this will do to the world of APIs. Every time a developer integrates their solution with an API, the world is a better place.
Yeah.
Because it makes technology available to more people. Right? How many new technologies will be introduced? You have to think about that. Now, this isn't the kind of thing you have to be able to pull out of your hat right now. When we're going to be finished with this session, you're going to have some homework.
Yeah. Okay.
So your homework will be, you have to start scoping scales. First of all, how big is the problem? How many developers are there out there? How many developers are there in the world today? How many are there in the US?
I've seen the number at some point.
I want you to write this down. I'm going to give you a list of numbers, a list of questions that I want you to be ready to answer. Okay? Question number 1. How many developers are there in the US? That's number 1. Number 2. What's the average amount of time spent integrating with an API? And if you'd like, take the top 10 most popular APIs, right? Like App Store is an API, Google Maps is an API, right? Take like the top, like what's the average amount of time spent? 3, how many APIs are there? Now, you'll notice that I have been focusing on the value proposition to the developers, not to the public.
Yeah.
That's another decision you have to make. Who's your target audience? Who are you going after? My gut intuitive feeling is that you're probably going to want to have engineers adopt your product first. Yes. Because they understand it better. For them it's a must-have, whereas for somebody like me it's a nice-to-have. The barriers to entry to them, I would guess, I don't know, would be lower. they're more of a community, so the chance of it going viral is better. And the more they use it, the better your product will be for the non. That would be my 30-second gut feeling analysis. It could be 100% wrong.
Okay.
But based on that, because you have to start somewhere, I did that.
Mm-hmm.
You also have to think about, another number you can give me is how many startups are there in the US that currently don't have in-house developers. You're saving me the need to use a developer.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? Which is dangerous because then developers will hate you. So you have to, I don't know, you have to think about it. It's not like they're unionized or something. But that's, so the powerful opening will be something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be here in Boston. You know, here in Boston alone, there are over 37,000 engineers and developers. In the US, if we want to go wider, we're looking at about 755,000 developers. Every one of these developers today who's working on a project that needs to integrate with an API is spending 40% of their time doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a huge problem. It's expanding time to market for the product. It's making it very difficult from a budgetary perspective because the investment money they raised is being spent not developing the core product. Now, I don't know if I was 20 seconds, you have to make that more concise. But do I know what space you're in?
Yeah.
And am I paying attention? Okay. Essence. What if I told you that for every one of these engineers working on API integration, we developed a way where they don't have to spend 10 hours doing it anymore, they can spend an hour doing it, and they wouldn't even have to write code. In fact, because we developed a system that doesn't require code writing, we are making APIs available not only as an efficiency tool for developers, but we're making APIs available to everyone in this room. With our system, all of you here can now develop API integration. That's it. If we stopped here, people would walk up to you and say, tell me more. So the reason I love this model is because people usually respond very badly to the constraint of presenting for 60 seconds. Oh my God. And here I am, I'm done after 30.
Yes. Yeah.
I still have double the time, right? So that's your homework for the first two parts.
Okay.
Now let's move to the more practical, right? Traction is about your accomplishments.
Yes.
Tell me about them. What have you accomplished so far? You're in the elevator, you're part of the elevator accelerator. No, you're part of the elevator fund.
Yes.
Right, so that means that you've gotten money invested in you.
Yes.
That's massive, that's great. So let's start looking at all the things you're proud of, all the accomplishments that you've had.
Apart from...
Right, you've been doing it for a year.
We are doing
First of all, doing it for a year. How much have you raised?
$25,000.
Raised our seed investment. Right? And you can decide, I wrote seed investment, but you can also say 25. It's up to you if you want to talk numbers or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Is there any pros and cons in doing that?
I'm not sure. I mean, there's an argument to be made. People who are, look, if most of the startups in the room have raised around those numbers, you should definitely say so.
Mm.
But if 30% of the startups in the room are going to get up and say, well, we've already raised $700,000, you're very, very early stage. Now, some people might like that, some not. The fact that you've raised money is the core of the traction.
Yeah.
How much money would be less significant?
Mm-hmm.
That's why, anyway, you say we've already raised our first round of seed. Who did you raise them from? Could also be traction, could be very impressive,
Mm-hmm.
right? You've raised it from?
The elevator.
From the elevator. From elevator. Okay, great. Fund. Next. Have you had any product releases?
Not really. We released our MVP about a few months ago, but in a closed beta version.
Wait. Released closed beta several months ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. What have you been testing? What data have you been able to gather?
What data? Users that subscribe to our site.
Let's say, what are you measuring? What are your KPIs? It is a you're like an online, you're cloud-based and anybody can use you?
Yeah, for now, yes. We have some alternatives, but for now, yes, it's a software as a service platform that we have right now.
Okay, so what that means is user acquisition is an important key performance indicator for you, correct?
Okay, yes.
So how many users have you had part of the beta?
It's 400.
Okay, 400 users. Okay, that's a quantitative KPI. Do you have a qualitative KPI? For instance, is there anything interesting about these users as far as their engagement, their feedback, who they are?
Yeah, they're mainly technical background. So the initial goal that we had to reach developers, I think that it's something that we managed to do it.
Okay. How has the system been working for them?
There's functionality missing.
There's functionality missing. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're still working on product validation.
Yes.
Okay.
And
That might be relevant to your call to action,
yeah.
right? So you might be saying, and so we started our traction is we've been around for about a year. We've already raised our seed money. We've already released our closed beta. In fact, we've already gotten in just a few short months. We've had over 400 engineers and developers come into our system and use it, which we're very happy with, and we're getting amazing data. What we've learned is that we're still in our product validation phase. So for all of you out there who want to become part of our beta, guess what? So now we're talking to the developers in the room.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also talking to the investors in the room, because a smart investor will go back to his team or to her team and say, I want you to try this thing out. So you see how the flow is working, right? Okay. Right now, how many APIs do you support?
It's open. Anything that is web-based can be...
Any web-based API your system works with?
Yeah.
Okay.
People can interact with it, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Something else that I don't know, because it's not directly related to what we're doing now.
Okay.
But what previously me and Fotis accomplished, and it was, for me at least, quite important, is that we managed to create a system, a graphical-based system, where non-technical people could actually program. So they were writing in a very specific language, but without typing the language.
Oh, is this like? Oh no, this is specifically for API, not for building an application.
What we're doing now, or the previous.
What you were just saying now.
No, that was part of a different completely product that we did in the past. But it was something that motivated us, because we managed to take people without technical background and actually write code.
So they were able to do that. How many?
I don't have the numbers, but I can find
Okay, so you're going to say X non-technical people have successfully generated code through us, through our system.
Yeah. But okay, this is not directly related to what we're doing now, but yeah, it's an accomplishment that I'm quite proud for.
Why is it not directly related? One of the things we said was that your system is great for people who don't write code.
Because that system that we created was...
oh, it's separate than the one...
Yeah, exactly, but
later on it may integrate.
Well, at least the principles, yes, we can...
That's traction. That is traction. That's traction. You are not getting into the details of, but the airplane's not really comfortable and it can only fly 6 hours, but it can't do transatlantic. You're not getting into that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about it, okay? You are around, we need to understand within a minute what you do. What's the promise you bring to the world?
Mm-hmm.
And is it real? Traction is about showing that you're a doer and not just a dreamer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's the This is the dream.
Yeah.
This is proof of seriousness, of ability. This is very pragmatic. This shows again that you're always with your eye moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
This shows that you have a very good understanding of your space, and this is also that you're a great communicator. Because an audience that has a good first 5 seconds, the first 5 or 6 seconds of your presentation establish what people think about you rather than what they think about your venture. And given that the persona that comes across, the leadership, the charm, the confidence, that's very, very important. Plus, it affects people in a non-rational way. They're not even aware necessarily, but they will vote for somebody who gave a great pitch on stage, even if another person who didn't give a great speech on stage, pitch, has a better product, a much better product. Right? So this is first impression. This is inspiration. This is evidence of of ability.
And this is the pragmatic part.
And this is the pragmatic part, looking ahead, always knowing what my next step is. Okay?
Yeah.
So your homework now is based on what we've done so far, is to put together a 1-minute pitch. You'll record it on camera. The previous one that you sent is longer than 1 minute. And I think it was 120 or 130, and that's okay.
I think it was something like 65 seconds or something.
No, I'm pretty sure it was more, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
60 seconds.
Okay, yeah.
Now, if you find it very, very difficult, I'll give you to do it longer and then we'll edit it down.
Okay.
But one of the ways we know we have a good 60-second pitch is when we end at 57, 58.
Yeah, okay.
We don't even need a full. Theoretically, if you push a gun to my head, you can go through the whole thing here in 40 seconds. 10, 10, 10, 10. If you really... Now, one last comment. And that's not about this model, but it's about... You have an accent.
Yes.
Right? So it makes certain words that you say less clear than others.
Yeah. Okay.
I want you to do 2 things. I want you to mark the words that are hardest to understand. And you can let people listen to your video, the one that you sent me, and ask them, which words did you not understand?
Okay.
Write them down, and then you're going to practice pronouncing those words.
Okay.
You are going to stand in front of a mirror and say, omnipotent, or whatever the word is that you understand?
Yeah.
You're going to practice your muscles, and when you get, those are what we call buzzwords, and you're going to focus on the words that you have the biggest problem with.
Okay.
Plus, and this is going to be very hard now, you're going to speak slower.
Slower. Okay.
Which is like, Ariel, what the hell are you doing to me? I only have 60 seconds. And I'm like, yep, you're good. I don't want you to fit into 60 seconds that people don't understand half of what you said. I'd rather you speak 60 seconds and we understand everything that you said, and you say less. But everything you said, we understand. So I want to see slower speech, emphasis on the word.